For as much as Arizona has struggled, I probably shouldn't be as excited as I am for this team. I think that I'm not expecting them to be a conference contender by any means, but I like the direction that Jedd Fisch has this program going. You look at some of the additions he made in the transfer portal on top of the players they have returning. There's some excitement around this program, and it's been a while since we've kind of felt that way, maybe since 2014, where you thought that Arizona was going to be that team that can contend in the Pac-12. You know, you look at way back then, they were in the conference championship game, but it's been kind of a downhill, really a landslide at times, and it just hasn't been good. But I like what Jedd Fisch is doing, and I think that this team could surprise a few teams in the Pac-12, and it's going to be fun with the talented players that they have returning and the guys on this list. There's reasons to believe that this team will be much better than they were, at least in 2021. Jayden might not be the most talented player on this roster, but he's definitely the most impactful. I mean, he is definitely up there in terms of talent, so I don't think that you really argue that he's a for sure not number one, but I'm putting him at number one because of the impact that he can have. The transfer from Washington State had a pretty decent year last year, 63% completion percentage, threw for over 2,800 yards with 23 touchdowns. And honestly, if this Arizona team is going to take a step forward, the offense has to do something. Both sides of the ball have struggled over the last few years, and the offense needs to show that it has at times a pulse, but also the explosive capability to compete in this conference. You look at some of the teams that they're going to be facing. USC and Oregon are going to be super explosive. Utah is going to be very tough to move the ball against. You have to find a way to move the ball down the field. And a guy like Jayden who can also run, could be the guy that you need. And you look at his talent, I really like what he brings to the table, and it's going to be exciting to see how he fits in this offense. But his impact as a player, just in this program, to take them in a new direction is what puts him at this top spot. People don't normally pay attention to UTEP football, and honestly, I don't blame you with how much they've struggled. But last year, they took a step forward, and Jacob Kyon was a big part of that. You look at what he did last year, the production that he was capable of putting up, or at least he did put up, and he's going to be an exciting option for Arizona. I think he and Jayden will have a good chemistry. They'll be able to find each other downfield. will be able to hit him, and he's an explosive playmaker. You see that even in his average. He's able to make big plays. He's able to stretch the ball or stretch the defense, and that opens things up for other players too. So not only is he going to make an impact by catching passes, but he'll also make an impact by just running routes. Jedd Fisch knows that he has to improve his defense, and his defensive line has a ton of potential. Kyon is one of the best defenders in the Pac-12, and we don't really talk about him much because he plays nose guard. But you look at his production, 8 tackles for loss and 5 sacks as a nose guard. Interior defensive linemen don't get enough love, and they don't get a ton of attention because they don't get a ton of stats. But if you're able to put up these kind of numbers, you deserve to have some conversation about you. And we talk about another guy here in just a sec. This Arizona defensive line could be a problem for teams in the Pac-12 this year. Jalen Harris is that other defensive lineman, 5.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. There's another edge player that we'll talk about in a little bit, but Jalen Harris is an extremely long defensive end, one that really stands out on film. He looks a lot bigger than maybe he's listed on the roster, and that's something that he can utilize to his advantage. You look at what this defense needs to do. They need to be disruptive in the front line, and you need to be able to get to the quarterback and make things difficult for the opposing offense. And if you're looking at what they have behind him, linebacker could be a question. The secondary has some talent, but there's still some questions there. This defensive line can make this defense better because they're disruptive, and guys like Harris and Bars are getting after the quarterback and making life really difficult for anybody that they face. Running backs will be interesting this year. So Jayden not only takes some of the pressure off in terms of the rushing attack, but he'll open up the rushing attack with his passing. And a guy like Michael Wiley really benefits from that, mostly because he's going to be a participant in both aspects. Only 302 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns last year, but he caught 33 passes out of the backfield as well. So it's going to be fun to see what he can do with a potentially more explosive offense, one that could get him the football in space and really utilize his skill set a little bit more than they did last year. We mentioned the secondary, and Christian Roland-Wallace has been a contributor for this defense for years now, and I think that his final year is going to be fun to watch. You look at what he's capable of doing. He does a little bit of everything for this defense, mostly out of necessity, but I think that you're looking at someone who can be an all Pac-12 type player. And like I said, the defensive line is going to play a huge role this year. I think that there'll be a bigger reason why this defense takes a step forward, but there is talent on the back end of the defense, and Roland-Wallace is one of those guys that can play a little bit everywhere. They can utilize him all around the field, and that's something that gives you versatility in your scheme, and it gives your defense more options in terms of who can do what. Drake Anderson could be another option at running back. We talked about Michael Wiley, but Drake Anderson had the second most carries on the team last year, just 4 less than Michael Wiley is. Wiley just has that versatility as a pass catcher. But if Drake Anderson can be more consistent as a rusher, which he did average 1.1 more yards per carry than Wiley did, so they're going to utilize him. And like I said, if this offense expands and takes a step forward in terms of explosiveness and production, guys like Anderson and Wiley will benefit from that explosion and from that the development of what they're able to do offensively. And the rushing attack really needs to play a big role because Jayden Laura can't throw the ball all around the field just by himself. They have to have a running game to help this offense. Hunter Echols comes in from USC, and people believe that he's going to be more of an edge player. And I think that's really exciting when you look at he and Jalen Harris, what they're capable of doing. And like I said, Jedfish brought in some good talent in the transfer portal. And if he hits on the 3 guys we've talked about in Echols, DeLaura, and Kyon, you're looking at a team, like I said, that can surprise people. And that's the reason why I'm excited, because the talent they return and bring in, it really sets them up for some success that they haven't seen in past years. Paiton Fears is already getting some NFL attention. That's really exciting for a program that hasn't had a ton. And I think that the biggest, maybe the biggest name at the next level has been Scooby Wright's return to the USFL. But Paiton Fears is an offensive tackle that could be an NFL talent. And if, like I said, if this offense takes a step forward, they have guys that can stand out, and Paiton Fears is one of those players. Jaxen Turner is another veteran on the defensive side of the ball, the defensive secondary. He does a little bit of everything just like Roland-Wallace does, but he plays safety. And like I said, that experience is going to take them to a new level. If you're able to improve your play on the field, you have the leadership that knows what it's like when times are tough, and they can actually get you to bounce back. They can get the new guys to get on board with everything and turn things around. Jedfish is doing a great job of really building this program, and it's going to be fun to see what he can do this year. Now, obviously, they have to do some things in order for that to happen, but when you look at what they have, you look at all the pieces to the puzzle, you're kind of liking what you've seen when it's all put together.